Riot Grrrl is a subculture of punk music that women have created to call out all sorts of things wrong with what people are doing, mostly sexism. It rose to popularity in the 1990s, but everything that rises must fall eventually, and Riot Grrrl had an interesting decline. So, what was the fall of Riot Grrrl? The main reasons, and the ones that I will explore in this essay, are the racism in the movement, the transphobia in the movement, and the hypocrisy that the bands have shown. Before we begin, we have to learn about the history and how Riot Grrrl first rose to popularity to really understand the gravity of the fall. Riot Grrrl is a movement born in Olympia, Washington, and like I stated earlier, it started in the 1990s. Riot Grrrl groups made their own music to express their opinion on gender identity, domestic violence, sexism, bodily autonomy, sexual identity, and way more. Riot Grrrls were seen as strong, independent women who were not afraid to speak up for what's right, and that's exactly what they were, and what they still are. Riot Grrrl first originated in the Evergreen State College, and with much support there, jumped all the way across the country to Washington, D.C. Following that, Riot Grrrl spread across the nation and even to England with bands like the Oozes. At first, the Riot Grrrl movement was just in Washington, but across the country in Washington, D.C., there was a similar movement on the rise, which then later merged with the Riot Grrrl movement. A huge moment in the Riot Grrrl movement was at the 1991 Grrrl Night. This was a kickoff concert to a 6-day international pop underground convention. Some of the biggest and most iconic names in the Riot Grrrl scene performed there, which includes bands like Bikini Kill, Bratmobile, and Heavens to Betsy. The most iconic part of Riot Grrrl was definitely the zines. Wikipedia describes a zine as a small circulation self-published work of original or appropriated texts and images, usually reproduced via a copy machine. These were used in the Riot Grrrl movement to rally support of the people, and this was so iconic that movies like Moxie shows the girls spreading Riot Grrrl zines around the school. The term Riot Grrrl is said to have derived from a group of female students in the Northwest who were sick and tired of the large amount of sexism in the punk scene. They were so angry they wanted to riot. The 3 R's in girl were put there to make it sound like the fierce growl of an animal. Although the movement only lasted a couple decades before its inevitable demise, Riot Grrrl helped clear a new path for women in rock and punk.
I look at you and suddenly I start to puke. You're everywhere, seeping into everything.
But like I said, everything that rises must eventually fall. All that I've said so far about the history of Riot Grrrl makes it seem like a very good scene. I mean, who doesn't like the idea of women empowering women? I guess that's unless if you hate women, but that's definitely besides the point. It looks like a great movement on the surface, but if you take a closer look, you'll see its flaws. Racism was definitely one of the flaws. The Riot Grrrl movement is described as exclusive by women of color. They didn't feel as though they were welcomed in the Riot Grrrl scene. Riot Grrrl is a white-dominated movement, and all of the top bands are mostly composed of white women. White women would often be the ones who spoke up and advocated for women's issues, but they failed to consider the interconnectedness of race, gender, and class. White Riot Grrrls did sometimes try to bring up racism and race in zines, but weren't able to properly express any valuable insight other than getting defensive or apologetic for their whiteness. Speaking of zines, people had to pay for photocopies, and a lot of low-income women of color weren't able to afford the zines, which was a huge part of the Riot Grrrl movement. Since Riot Grrrl felt so exclusive, in the late 90s, Tamar Cali Brown, who is a musician, decided to form an alternative to Riot Grrrl called Sister Girl Riots. But the racism doesn't just stop at exclusivity. Next, I will discuss a specific person associated with the Riot Grrrl scene named Courtney Love. Courtney Love says she isn't a Riot Grrrl. Let me make that clear. However, she meets all the requirements to be a Riot Grrrl. Courtney is in a band called Hole, which originated from Olympia, Washington, and they make music that sounds like Riot Grrrl punk. Plus, some of the songs have similar subjects to Riot Grrrl punk. Even though she says she isn't a Riot Grrrl and even criticizes Riot Grrrl in some of her songs, she is, however, associated with the movement, and Riot Grrrls do consume her music still. So even if she doesn't consider herself a Riot Grrrl, her actions have impacted the movement, for the better and the worse. Courtney Love is most well known for being married to Kurt Cobain, and the controversies surrounding their extremely toxic marriage. But that isn't where the controversies end. When Courtney Love was performing at one of her band's concerts, she made the crowd chant the N-word along with her, afterwards praising them for being good white people, and then added at the end, do you feel less politically correct now? Because I do. When some of her fans eventually booed her, she couldn't handle it and shut down. Luckily, she doesn't scream the N-word at her concerts anymore, but that doesn't hide the fact that it has happened. But this isn't where her racism ends, because in 2005, during a comedy roast of Pamela Anderson, Courtney chastised black men for wearing do-rags, and also snapped at Eddie Griffin saying, "You African Americans only know about me because I've been arrested." She also has very segregated views on music. She believes that black people shouldn't listen to rock, even though they were the ones who helped invent it, and white people shouldn't listen to hip-hop. At her 24-hour takeover of MTV, she praised a black girl for not knowing the Strokes and added, "You've got your culture and I've got mine." However, this wasn't the only time that this problem has arisen. During a 2010 performance, she angered her crowd so much that the venue ended up empty during her performance. At first, she refused to sing until putting on a fan's bra, which already pissed off the crowd. But what she did next completely emptied the venue. She pulled up a black girl on stage and asked her, "Do you really like rock music? Because you're African American." That would be like me being into Lil Wayne. All that she did influenced Riot Grrrls and the Riot Grrrl movement, despite her not being a Riot Grrrl. This is just some of the racism that was in the Riot Grrrl scene. For a movement that's supposed to be accepting and inclusive, it was very exclusive. Racism isn't where it stops though, because next is transphobia in the Riot Grrrl movement. First of all, in the Riot Grrrl scene, there weren't any trans women involved in the movement, at least not in the 90s. There was a sort of trans invisibility in the Riot Grrrl movement, but that was just a small part of the transphobia that was in the movement. Many of the high-profile bands like Le Tigre and Bikini Kill have also had controversies about their involvement with the Michigan Women's Music Festival, also known as Mitchfest, which is famous for being trans-exclusive. In 1999, the Butchies performed at Mitchfest. The frontwoman for the Butchies, Kaya Wilson, was also running Mr. Lady Records. When a number of trans activists approached Mr. Lady Records asking them and their bands to boycott Mitchfest, they were met with disappointment. Wilson released a statement claiming to be in support of trans women, but then backed up Mitchfest's women-born women ideals. As of 2010, an interview suggests that her views on the matter haven't changed. Then later, in 2001 and 2005, Le Tigre performed at Mitchfest. They were fronted by Kathleen Hanna, who is the lead singer of Bikini Kill, and, as mentioned previously, Mitchfest is known for being transphobic. Le Tigre doesn't seem to be apologetic at all for playing at this venue. We also know that they probably didn't learn anything from it at all, because They performed there not once, but twice. However, in the more recent years, Kathleen Hanna has been proudly showing her support for trans rights. Racism and transphobia isn't the only thing that sent the movement plummeting. The bands have also, time and time again, shown hypocrisy by doing things that the movement is strongly against. With songs like Vagina Police by Dreamnails, White Boy by Bikini Kill, and Teen Mom by Slut Ever, it is made very clear that Riot Grrrls are against rape and sexual assault. And you'd think that rape would never happen in the Riot Grrrl scene, especially not in the bands. But if you thought that, you'd be wrong. The band Grrrlwood is a pretty popular Riot Grrrl band with a little over 800,000 monthly Spotify listeners. They're a band that formed in August of 2017 in Louisville, Kentucky. The band consisted of Rage Forrester, who is the guitarist and the singer, and Karen Ledford, who is the drummer. Together they make up a two-person band, Grrrlwood. Their most popular songs are I'm Your Dad, sitting at 81 million listens, and I Hate My Mom, sitting at 29 million listens. They're pretty well known. You might have heard of them from TikTok if you had it back in 2020. They initially rose in 2020. So why did I bring them up? Grrrlwood found themselves in a rape scandal in 2020. Karen posted on her personal and on the band's Instagram page accusing Rage of sexual misconduct, stating that allegedly she was raped when they were in a car leaving Cincinnati. Rage denied, saying that she would always ask for verbal consent from Karen. It was always needed due to her past trauma. Also, Rage confirms that they have been in a physical relationship in the past, but again, that she always asked for consent. After Karen went public with this, she left the band and now goes by the name Eliza. As for Rage and the band, she has a new drummer, who is Mia Morris. And they've released a new single called Bad Bitch Supreme with the band Fit for Rivals. This is the first thing they've released since 2018. While this whole story is alleged, it still shows the hypocrisy some Riot Grrrl bands show. Also, like I've said before, the Riot Grrrl movement is supposed to be an inclusive movement to help all women, but then they decide to exclude Black or trans women, which is completely hypocritical. So, the Riot Grrrl movement fell because of racism, transphobia, and hypocrisy, but I don't believe that this is the end for Riot Grrrl. Riot Grrrl is not a bad movement. In fact, I think it's a great movement. There are just a lot of flaws, but it's nothing that we can't fix. Riot Grrrl can be used for a lot of good. There are a lot of good songs with amazing messages. Especially recently with Roe v. Wade getting overturned last year, Riot Grrrl is as essential as ever. With songs like Abortion by Mommy Longlegs and Baby I Had an Abortion by Petrol Girls, which show support to women who get abortions and for Roe v. Wade. In cases like these, Riot Grrrl can be used for a lot of good. It can be used to make big problems more digestible for people so that they want to learn about them. And there has been a recent rise of Riot Grrrls with bands like Destroy Boys, Cheap Perfume, and Daisy and the Scouts. We are seeing new Riot Grrrls, and this time I hope that they will do better. Some Riot Grrrl bands that I would recommend checking out if you are interested in the movement are, of course, Bikini Kill, they're literally a classic, Destroy Boys, Mommy Longlegs, Slut Ever, Cheap Perfume, and Sloppy Jane. Like I said, Riot Grrrl can be used for a lot of good, and I hope the new wave of Riot Grrrls will be better than the first. Riot Grrrl is what first introduced me and many other girls to learning about feminism and other women's issues. The music is also very empowering to women. It is used a lot in reclaiming derogatory terms that have been used against women, and just uplifting each other by seeing the issues that we go through and knowing that you're not the only one who is upset about them. Riot Grrrl is coming back, and I just hope that we will do better than before.